What is going on, my people? We back at it again with the white vans. PapaReys Boom Boom Room. We're back. Week 2 of the NFL. Last week, if you guys peeped in on the video, some of my friends listened and won some money, won some fantasy games. Some of my friends were like, hey man, I started this guy. Why didn't you say anything? Well, I did, and they didn't listen. So share this to your friends so your friends don't mess up, make some money, and win some fantasy football games and win some pick'ems. My pick'ems last week. I got my boy Dennis. My boy Dennis won some money on some pick'ems. I'm glad he didn't pick all of them because, man, week 1 of the NFL was crazy. Week 1 results: we had Kansas City over Houston, 34-20. New England over Miami, 21-11. Baltimore murdered Cleveland, 38-6. Washington surprise win, 27-17 versus Philadelphia. Buffalo killed the Jets, 27-17. The Chargers, 16-13, and that doesn't make sense. Joe Burrow brought them back to win the game, or at least tie it, and the kicker missed. Seattle, 38-26 over Atlanta. Tampa Bay, 23-34. New Orleans won that game. Arizona won 24-20 versus San Francisco. That was a big surprise. Las Vegas over Carolina, 34-30. Another big surprise. Chicago, 27-23 over Detroit. This was a terrible Sunday night game. Rams versus Dallas. Rams won 20-17. Pittsburgh defense completely stunted the Giants, 26-16 over the Giants. Jacksonville with a surprise win, 27-20 over Indianapolis Colts. Phillip Rivers is Phillip Rivers. Picks all the time. Green Bay, 43. Minnesota, 34. And Tennessee won 16-14. I told y'all that was going to be a low-scoring game. So we're going to jump straight into it. If you guys haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe my YouTube channel. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we're going to get started with the stardom sit-ems for week 2, starting off with the QB position. Big Ben looking real nice. I would start Big Ben versus Denver. I would start Aaron Rodgers versus Detroit. Aaron Rodgers went off last week, showing some MVP caliber play. Josh Allen for the Bills would start him over in against Miami. Tom Brady adjusting to a new team. I would start him versus Carolina. And I would start Joe Burrow versus the Browns for that Thursday night game, which is tonight. So I'm trying to hurry up and make this video so you guys can edit your lineups. Then we got our sits. I would sit Carson Wentz versus the Rams. I would sit Matt Stafford versus Green Bay. I would sit Derek Carr versus New Orleans. I would sit Deshaun Watson. I said it, Deshaun Watson versus Baltimore. You guys seen what Baltimore did to the Texans last year, and the Texans did not get any better. And I would sit Drew Lock versus the Steelers. Drew Lock is nice, but that Steeler defense, if you guys watched on Monday, is insane. My sleepers for this week would be Gardner Minshew and Ryan Tannehill. They actually play each other, so that's my sleeper picks for this week and for the QBs. Gonna move on to running back. I would start any of the Browns running backs, Hunt or Chubb, versus the Bengals. I would start either or of the Colts running backs, Nyheim Hines or Jonathan Taylor versus Minnesota. Marlon Mack did get hurt. I think he tore his Achilles, so he's pretty much out for the season. I would start Ronald Jones versus Carolina, not trusting Leonard Fournette yet. I would start Ronald Jones versus Carolina. I would start J.K. Dobbins versus Houston, and I would start Raheem Mostert versus the Jets. My sits for running back this week, I would sit Joe Mixon versus the Browns. I would sit either of the LA Rams running backs, whether it's Cam Akers or Malcolm Brown versus the Eagles. I would sit Frank Gore versus the 49ers. Le'Veon Bell is out, so Frank Gore is going to take those touches. And I would sit either of any of the running back committee from the New England Patriots versus Seattle. I would also sit Melvin Gordon. He's going to be a bust this week. My sleepers for running back, I got Antonio Gibson from Washington against Arizona. Zach Moss, the rookie for the Bills. I would start low-key sleeper versus Miami. And David Montgomery for the Bears. They play the Giants this week, so that's another matchup to look out for if you're thin on running back. Flip the page with my handy-dandy notebook. I thought I had lost it this week, but my wife found it. And what would I do without my wife? Start them sit-ems for wide receiver. Start Allen Robinson versus the Bears. Start Adam Thielen versus the Colts. Start John Brown versus Miami. This is picky. I would start Will Fuller versus the Ravens. I know the Ravens secondary is crazy. I might start Will Fuller this week. And of course, start Cooper Kupp versus the Eagles. My sits, I would start Jamison Crowder versus the 49ers. Jamison Crowder had a breakout game week 1, but I would sit him. And I would also sit Christian Kirk. I said this last week. I'm going to say it again. You've seen the targets DeAndre Hopkins had. Sit Christian Kirk versus Washington. I would sit Henry Ruggs versus New Orleans. Sit Jerry Jeudy, although he's the number 1 wide receiver right now because Cortland Sutton's hurt. Sit him against the Steelers, I'm telling you. And sit Devontae Parker versus the Bills. My sleeper picks for wide receiver this week, Emmanuel Sanders versus Las Vegas. Paris Campbell versus Minnesota. And Anthony Miller again. I told you guys last week Anthony Miller had a great first game. And I would low-key start him over the Giants. Tight end. I will start Jared Cook over Vegas. Start Eric Ebron versus the Broncos. Start Dallas Goedert versus the Rams. Start Noah Fant versus the Steelers. And I would start Darren Waller versus New Orleans. My sits at tight end. Sit Chris Herndon, tight end for the Jets. Sit Gronk. I don't know when he's going to adjust to being back in the NFL. Sit Jack Doyle. We try to give this man plenty of chances. It's just not happening. Sit Greg Olsen versus the Pats. He's on a new team in Seattle. I don't know how that's going to work. And sit Hayden Hurst because the Falcons had 3 other wide receivers with 100 yards. The man's fighting for some touches. My sleepers at tight end, Hunter Henry against Kansas City, Evan Ingram against Chicago, and Jonnu Smith against Jacksonville. Kickers. Like I said, kickers and defense is something you can swap out if you don't have an elite kicker or defense, depending on the matchup. So my starts for kicker this week would be Blankenship versus Vikings, Young-Ho Koo versus the Cowboys, Robbie Gould versus the Jets, Jason Myers versus the Pats, and Zane Gonzalez versus Washington. My sits would be McManus versus the Steelers, Jason Sanders versus the Bills, Graham Gano versus the Bears, Nick Folk versus Seattle, and Randy Bullock versus the Browns. He's the one that missed the game-tying field goal for Cincinnati. My defenses. Starting, I would start Kansas City, start the Rams versus the Eagles. I would start the Bucks. The Bucks defense looked really good last week, kind of kept them in the game. If it wasn't for some offensive miscues, the Bucks could have won that game. Start them. Start Buffalo or the 49ers as was obvious. Start Chicago's defense versus the Giants. Defenses I would sit. I would sit Dallas versus the Falcons. I would sit Houston versus Ravens. Sit New Orleans. Sit Green Bay. And although the Washington defense did look nice last week, I would sit them versus Arizona. Again, I picked a few people, not the obvious choice, not the Julio Joneses of the world, the Patrick Mahomes. Don't ask me, should I start Patrick Mahomes this week? Or, Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's dumb. Use your head. Read up on injuries. Read up on practices during the week. And make your decisions. I'm just here to let you guys know what I think. My weekly picks for this week, I got the Browns over the Bengals, Jags over the Titans, Bucks over the Panthers, Steelers over the Broncos, Rams over the Eagles, 49ers over the Jets, Bills over the Dolphins, Colts over the Vikings, Packers over the Lions. Cowboys over the Falcons, Bears over the Giants, Cardinals over Washington, Kansas City over the Chargers, Ravens over Texans, Seahawks over the Patriots, and the Saints over Las Vegas. So, I'm going to post this soon. Hopefully, you guys watch this before you make your fantasy lineup. See what you guys can find in the waiver wire. There's a lot of injuries going on in the NFL. A lot of people being placed on IR. So if you can find yourself a nice cheap option in the waiver wire, use them for a few weeks, and then once the guy's healthy, you make that decision whether to cut him or keep him. These are my weekly picks, and I want to wish you guys the best of luck. NFL Week 2. Oh man, this is just a great time of year. NFL, NBA, all the, just because of Corona, we have all the sports at the same time, which never happens. So this is great. I want to appreciate you guys for watching. If you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at PapaReys Boom Boom Room. And I want to wish you guys the best of luck. God bless and stay safe, my people.